Happy Wednesday. I'm Chief Forecaster Dakota Hunter with your First Defense Forecast, and let's start off with the winter weather advisory. It stays in place until 6 p.m. tonight for pretty much the entire southern tier. The one for southern Erie County, Pennsylvania will go until 1 p.m., and I don't see the Weather Service, I don't see them extending that. So at 1 o'clock, that will no longer be in effect there, but it will continue for pretty much the southern tier until 6 o'clock tonight for continuing bands of lake effect snow. So these are the snowfall totals that we got so far from last night through this morning. This does not take into effect the snow squall that came through later this morning, and of course the snow coming this afternoon. But this is from last night through this morning. Little Valley at 6 inches, Gary at 3.8, Jamestown 3.5, Ketterog is 3 inches, Falconer 2 inches, and Olean 1.6. So again, those were from last night through this morning. We'll probably tack on a little bit more on top of that through the afternoon. Here's future scan through the day. You can see the model picks up on those lake bands. You can see the darker blues indicate the heavier amounts of snowfall. Again, I think in terms of snowfall accumulation, I think most areas maybe around 2 inches. It clears out tonight, and then tomorrow will be a nice and dry day. Will dry out. So about 2 to 3 inches additional on top of what we already have, maybe on the highest hills. I'm leaning more towards this lower number, not so much the higher number, but we'll see what happens here. Maybe about 1 to 2 inches across the lower elevations, and 1 inch or less further to the south and right near the Lake Erie shoreline. As often is the case at the immediate waterfront, you don't tend to get a whole lot when it comes to lake effect. So about 2 to 3, 1 to 2 inches, not a big deal there, pretty much adding on top of what we already have. Now let's talk about the weekend. We've been mentioning this all week. So this is what we have right now. There's 2 potential tracks that this storm will take. A track further to the south means we'll probably add in a little bit more freezing rain. If it moves further to the north, then will probably be more rain. So here's what we have right now. Friday will be a widespread rain deal, possibly moderate to heavy at times. Saturday will almost be an exact clone. Temperatures way up into the mid-50s, but that's early in the day. Temperatures will slide all the way through the 40s and possibly ending the day into the upper 30s. But the bigger question here is, when will that colder air arrive? That's going to be the next big piece into this. With the storm track and also that colder air. But notice how this ice line is just so close to the southern tier. We cannot rule out the potential of maybe a light wintry mix at this point. But again, it's all track dependent on when that colder air gets here. If the colder air gets here sooner, we may have to move this ice line down a little bit, and if the track is further to the south. If the track is further to the north and the colder air holds off until later in the day, it'll probably be more rain. But there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered with this. So again, this is just an early guidance based on what we have right now. And in terms of the impacts, as of this moment, it's looking like more heavy rain might be the case. It might be a flooding rain Friday, Saturday, and maybe even Sunday. That's going to be an issue. Winds will be coming up, especially Saturday and Sunday. Again, ice and snow, not a big deal as of now, but that could all change. So we'll keep you updated tomorrow and especially Friday with all the latest as new data comes in. So 34 degrees tomorrow will dry out. That's the good news. At least we'll see some partial sunshine. Friday, the wind comes up. There's that soaking rain, 48. 55 early in the day on Saturday. Temperatures falling through the 40s, likely ending the day probably around 40, maybe the upper 30s. Again, all depending on when that cold air gets here. More rain Sunday, and again, mostly rain. Not going to rule out the chance of maybe a rain or snow shower. Dry on Monday, 42, and then we get a few rain and snow showers in here next Tuesday. But almost every single one of those days on that forecast is above average.